Good afternoon and welcome to today's AAT Tech Talk. Just give everyone a moment to arrive before we jump into today's webinar. So for those of you joining us today for the first time, welcome. We do one of these every month. My name's Samuel Burmeister. I'm Head of Technical Development here at the AAT. And just while we're waiting for everyone to arrive, I'll just run through some housekeeping for you. So firstly, if you log into the AAT website, under the resources section here, you can go to Tech Talk Webinars. And in this section here, you have access to all of our Tech Talks and webinars that we run each month. For example, we just ran an NDIS plan management session with Gobble that you can have a look at. And you'll see we've got quite a range of Tech Talks here that you can have a look at. So just to recap, that's under the resources section, Tech Talk Webinars. And today's session is recorded and will be uploaded there shortly. So a few other notes to just point out to you. We have the Q&A functionality today. So if you click on the Q&A button and type in any questions you have, we'll be answering them live for you today during the webinar. Just make sure you type them in there and not during the chat area. Apart from that, I think it's about time we get started. So I'd like to introduce you to our guests today. We have Andrew Glenn, who is a marketing manager at QBO, and Lauretta Finis, who's a bookkeeping business owner at QBBS. And they'll be talking to us a bit today in an interview format to talk about how Lauretta's gone paperless and used QBO to really assist her with her journey as a bookkeeping business owner. So welcome, guys. You might need to take yourselves off mute if you haven't already.
Thanks, Sam. Good to be here today.
Thanks, Sam.
Great. Take it away when you're ready.
No problems. Well, thanks, everyone. Look, today's an informal sort of fireside chat. I'll be sort of talking with Lauretta about her journey and really sort of exploring what she's been up to. So a little bit about Lauretta. Lauretta's held various management positions in corporate banking based here in Australia, but her true love really has been sort of looking after small businesses and their accounting. She started QuickBooks Business Bookkeeping Solutions back in 2002, specialising in QuickBooks training and consulting. And she also co-founded the QBO Business Hub, which offers dedicated support and training and consulting to bookkeeping services and businesses around Australia. Back in 2012, she moved to the cloud with QuickBooks Online, and this has really helped Lauretta sort of take care of clients and businesses remotely from when she's traveling around the world, as she does. And it allows, I suppose, to offer a more holistic service from a sort of a 24/7 perspective regarding their accounting software wherever she may be. Lauretta is one of our currently one of the members of the Australian Intuit Trainer Writer Network. She presents all over Australia courses on advising how to use QuickBooks and from an advanced level through to our QuickBooks Online advisors and business owners. She was honoured in 2016 to be the Australian runner-up for the Global Firm of the Future, and she is certainly a partner to QuickBooks in how we work within the Australian market. So today we really want to just explore Lauretta's journey and really see how she's been able to drive efficiencies in her practice and ultimately go paperless. So Lauretta, maybe if you can start way back when, how did the journey start into bookkeeping?
Thanks, Andrew. It's been an interesting one, that's for sure. From where I started to where I am today, as we all know, the industry has changed so much. But in my journey, I actually started back in a country town called Mildura, if no one's heard of Mildura, where I actually wanted to be an accountant. Funnily enough, but I actually grew up in a very strict Italian household. Mildura has a big Italian community there, and I was not allowed to go to university. So what happened was I actually moved into banking, and I was in banking for many years. I moved to Melbourne, where I then moved into corporate banking and into private banking. That was around the 2000, 2001, I think 2002, where I looked at where I was going to be heading with what I wanted to do in life. And private banking, the way banks are these days, it just didn't do it for me. So I actually left, and that's when I started my bookkeeping practice. So that's all the way back to 2002 when I first started.
So what did it look? What did it look like back in 2002? How were you preparing people? How were you looking after your clients? What type of work were you doing then?
Totally different to what we do today. I mean, a lot of people on this session probably wouldn't even know what a floppy disk is. I'm
fortunate enough to know that. Yeah, so
you know that. I don't know if Sam knows what a floppy disk is, but yes. So basically, back in the old days, like my daughter likes to say, it was a desktop, and I actually started with a different product where it was DOS. Does everyone remember DOS? DOS system, where it was
those are the good old days.
Yep. So I actually was using a product, one of the other products. And then in the year 2000, that's when everything started to change, because GST had arrived in Australia, and some of the softwares jumped in and they made the software a little bit user-friendly to what we now see it. So they got rid of DOS, thank God, and very similar to what it is now. Of course, they've all moved. Some have moved to the cloud, some have not. And it was just a different world back then, because at one stage I had 4 girls working for me, but they all had to travel to the client. And I think on the next slide I actually talk about it here, Andrew, where I actually talk about the travel was the normal for us, where the girls would have to travel to the client because they had the software license. So we're talking about software licenses. So it was their software license. So we had actually traveled to them and actually process. And as you can see, that happy little chap there with his glasses, that's how we were actually given paperwork most of the time. And then we had to make sense of it. So it was a lot of data entry.
So effectively, you had to travel on site, and really you were, I suppose, using the client's computers and their software.
It was a nightmare. Yeah.
You really were sort of relying on sort of having to be there on site to actually undertake the work for them.
Oh, totally. And I remember a lot of the times I should have had my IT hat on because their printer wouldn't work. Because in those days we printed everything. We printed reports, we printed bank reconciliations. I had to have my bank reconciliation printed with my statement, and there was certain procedures that I used to do then that I no longer do now. So of course, if their computer wasn't working, well then it stopped us from working as well. It was really difficult. I remember, funny story, I remember visiting a client in in Brunswick, where we had to I had to sit on a little desk, so it was no longer than probably 2 feet with a computer, and I had to enter everything in.
Wow. So was there many instances where a client would give you the floppy disk, and then they'd say information would effectively be traveling by floppy disk between practices? Is that was how it was, or you had to go into the client site? So
yeah. So basically, it depended on whose license it was.
Right.
So if we held the license, I could actually do it in my office with the staff. But if they held the license, my staff had to go to them.
So it was a really, I suppose, manual process. It was very data entry heavy.
Yes.
Lots of, I suppose, risk of data entry error, because obviously so many transactions or where it was coming from.
Yes.
How did you cope with that in terms of I suppose those sort of challenges?
Well, basically, it was well, with our normal monthly reconciliation, we would actually check then whether or not the data was entered correctly. You know, the bill, we had bills, we had expenses, so it just depended on how good the actual staff member was and how accurate she was. And it was in our bank reconciliations. That's where we'd actually pick up if something was incorrectly processed. Like I said, you know, it was just that entry of all the transactions that we had to enter in manually, because there were no bank feeds in those days whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So I suppose, I mean, what was the relationship like with those clients? Was it very much like you were sort of providing the bookkeeping services as opposed to a more sort of broader advisory position? Is that how it would have been seen?
Yeah, back in those days, being a bookkeeper, and this is pre-BAS agent days as well, so it might be a little bit of a history lesson here for some, but some that don't know it, BAS agents haven't been around that long as well. So I started my business before BAS agents were around, and it was just the change of how we did things. So we were bookkeepers in those days.
Mm.
Not what I do today, not what a lot of people do today.
Sure. Okay.
Well, that was my practice anyway. There's probably a lot of people on here that do things differently than me too.
Exactly. And I suppose moving to the, you know, as things move on, what are the sort of the key milestones which were really, I suppose, the catalyst for you sort of moving to the cloud?
Look, for me, I have an issue with traveling, with driving. So for me, I hated travel. I know the 4 girls that were on the road, they would spend time traveling from their house to the client's house. So I was trying to eliminate that problem going on, as well as I had one staff member that actually poached she tried to poach one of the clients, because she had the relationship with the client more so than what I did, because she was going to them on a weekly basis. So we were doing weekly bookkeeping back in those days, because we had to enter in bills, so therefore the client knew what bills he had to pay. Totally different to what we do today, of course, with Receipt Bank and so forth. So that was one of the things there too. So I had to make sure that it was my client. I kept my client, I should say. And it was basically like, I'm in Doncaster, Victoria, near Melbourne, of course. And I only, I guess, stuck to the local clients around my area.
Right. So you were, you know, geographically sort of limited, but because of really, I suppose, the time to get out to a client, and then
we lost a lot of time.
Yeah,
you know, by the time, you know, like I was driving an hour there and then an hour back, so it's 2 hours of my time that I could not actually bill out for.
Wow. So
because I know that there's a lot of bookkeepers that did actually charge for traveling, but I did not.
And do you think that was really, I suppose, one of those things that you saw, that there was a better way to sort of, you know, to I suppose help clients sort of drive efficiencies in their business by, you know, really starting to move to the cloud and bring their businesses into the sort of let's call it, I wouldn't say the 21st century, but, you know, making it, driving efficiencies.
Yeah, well, I had watched QuickBooks Online for quite a while before it actually did arrive here in Australia. Then when it did, I actually jumped on straight away, because I knew that's where I wanted my practice to head. Is to run a remote practice where I didn't have to worry about sending CDs off to an accountant. And that was the other issue I had, because at the end of financial year, we had to send CDs off to the accountants for them to do the end of financial year, or we would have to send the CD off to the client once we'd finish the rescue work or the monthly or quarterly work. And I had an issue where one of my client's staff members picked up the wrong file. So she was working in the wrong file, and then the actual client blamed us, and he wanted me to redo the whole thing. So I knew that there must have been a better way of running my practice. So as I do, I look overseas to see what everybody else is doing. And I heard this thing about cloud and working remotely, and we didn't have it here in Australia at that stage, until QuickBooks arrived for me anyway.
For sure, for sure. And what was so obviously the catalyst was really about sort of for you, you could drive greater time management. You could bill for more hours by not having to always go into your client's time. But maybe can you talk us through, I suppose, the impact of being able to sort of connect up a bank feed and really, I suppose, how bank feeds and that getting that clean data into the the online accounting and how that's streamlined, just the way you work with clients.
Yeah, well, basically, with the bank feeds, we did set them up, and as you know, you get the accurate data coming through. So therefore, they eliminated our processes, as in the actual need A, to go and visit the client, and B, we had accurate data coming through. So with that data, with the actual bank feed coming through, we actually saved a great deal of time on our clients, actually processing our clients' files. There's one client in particular where I used to have to drive to see her over at Coburg. By the time I'd do her work for 4 or 5 hours, I'd get back and I'd waste a whole day. Now I actually do her file within about 2 hours for the whole month. And that was weekly, by the way, that I have to drive to her place. So now I only do it once a month. It's 2 hours, but I still charge her for the whole time that I used to visit her, because I'm still doing the same work.
Fantastic. And I suppose that's the great benefit for you. You've driven efficiencies, but you've also, from a billing and margin perspective, that's a great outcome for yourself. How have clients sort of, how have they felt about this transition from sort of that on-site to I suppose, a remote sort of working relationship?
Look, I actually find that my old clients trusted me because they were my old clients. So when I suggested they move to the cloud, I gave them the benefits of moving to the cloud, and they could see what I'd been doing with QuickBooks. I think within about 12 months, I'd moved most of my clients across to QuickBooks Online and bank feeds. There were, however, and this is being very honest, there were, however, a couple of clients that just didn't want bank feeds in their file because, there's that stigma of, the government might see it, or someone's going to break into my QuickBooks and take my money, and all sorts of scenarios were happening. But they can now see how quick and convenient it is even for them to actually process bank feeds. So, they've come around. And don't forget, we're talking back in 2012, 2013, 14, where cloud just wasn't around. Because I do everything cloud for my business. So
how did you build their trust? How did you get them to? Because I imagine it's a bit of a change management perspective to get someone to change their mindset from it's done on we do it on site to actually it's all online, and the bank feed, all the data goes in, and that's obviously a bit of a trust issue. How did you manage that sort of? Because that's obviously a big key thing to drive these efficiencies.
Yeah, well, it's more so the new clients as well, that they have to learn to trust you. And it's that initial chat that you have with your client. I invite them to come into my office to actually visit with me, so that they know that I'm here, I'm real, and just showing them the difference between what they had or have to what they can have. Because I also give my clients the training in looking at their file and also reviewing what their business has done, because a lot of the clients just they're on spreadsheets, and we've moved them into the cloud, and a lot of the clients now can get reports at an instant, so they know what their business is doing. And I've actually, well, like everybody else has, I guess, on this webinar, we've been able to help the client move to the next step, to help them grow. Once they see that we've taken away their pain and that we can actually give them something more than just data entry within reports, we can give them ideas of where they can grow, because it's the way I set up my chart of accounts, so they can read their financials. They actually know that I'm doing something else for them, not just bookkeeping.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, is that you've got so much more value add that you can offer to them, and it's about, I suppose, opening up their eyes as to how you can really assist them to streamline their business. What's that sort of transition for themselves to be using the software? What sort of changes have they sort of gone through to get them up to speed to feel confident and competent using the product?
Well, basically, as another service that I now provide that I never provided back in the 90s and 2000, and that is training. Because with the setup, I will give them training to a certain extent, because with the training I give them, they get more confident that the actual software will actually give them what they need, but also too, they can send out their own invoices, so they feel in control. Because it's like you and I and everybody else, if we lose that control, it's a little bit daunting. So having the control that they can send out their invoices, they can run a report, they can see their profit and loss, because we actually process their bank feeds on a weekly basis. So we're giving them live data with their reporting on a weekly basis now, compared to what we were monthly or quarterly back in the old days. So they're getting confidence with the actual systems that we set them up on, and it's not just QuickBooks, because we help them out with other different softwares as well, to be able to run their business, because it's the business owner. Every business owner is different, so what I might set up for client A could be totally different to client B.
What for people listening to the to the webinar today, what sort of advice would you from your experience, how would you approach a new client who still might be on a desktop version? What's the key sort of tactics to really sort of build that trust and get them onto a cloud solution as soon as possible?
Yeah, well, basically, I had a client come to me about a year ago that was on a desktop, and he heard about QuickBooks and he heard about the other softwares as well. I invited him to come in and see it live, how it actually works. And I told him the fact that I actually go on holidays and I still look after my clients. Because that was one of the things that he couldn't do, is when he was on holidays, he could not invoice out to his clients. So he liked that idea, that he could access the file wherever he was, and 24/7 basically, compared to having the software sitting on a desktop back in his office.
And was that a tough conversation for him to sort of get their minds around, I suppose, that transition to really sort of working with someone on a remote basis, or were they they were quite okay with that in that sense?
Yeah, look, this is where it's all different, because you might get the business owner that's really stuck on their desktop, and no matter what you do, no matter what you tell him, sometimes you just can't change those ones, right? But no matter how much I show him that we could do this, we can do that, no, he still wants it his old-fashioned way. So that's okay too. If he wants to stay with that, let him stay with that. But you know what? That's not my client, because all my clients are in the cloud. They're open to suggestion. They're open to working with everything in the cloud like I do. We're not going to win them all, Andrew. That's the truth. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, maybe if we're just moving along, how talk us through your practice, how you've transitioned.
Well, basically, funny enough, I've been running this business for over 20 years or so, and I also did bookkeeping on the side when I was working at the bank. I ran it from home, like I think a lot of us started, but then I actually moved into an office about 3 years ago, because I had a couple of girls where I thought, yep, no worries, so I need to move into an office to take control. This is what I thought anyway. And what I found was that we still we had folders, and I had, probably about 4 or 5 filing cabinets with all the different clients' folders that we had, because I wanted one for bank statements, one for reporting, one for payroll, etc. So my whole office was filled with filing cabinets. Then it came the time where I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. I had already started using Dropbox, but not in the way that I use it now. I already started using other softwares, but not in the way that I use it now either. But the crunch came when, when I was going overseas, because the age that I am now, I do want to travel a bit as well as run my business. So I thought, how do I do that? But yet all the folders are back in the office, so I can't access anything. So what I did is, and the other thing as well is I had 2 girls, and then one of them had issues, so she needed to work from her home office, and now she works from her home office. My other girl works from her home office, so it was just me sitting in the office all alone once again. I'm thinking,
so you're paying rent and
Yeah.
For to sit by yourself.
Yeah, that's right. So I might as well do it at home, and at least Buddy, my King Charles Cavalier, can talk to me. Yeah. So now I actually run a full virtual office, where in fact that picture there was taken in Monument Valley in Arizona in the US, where I went on holidays with my hubby because he turned 60 a couple of years ago, and I was able to run my practice. Yes, on the iPhone. Believe it or not, when I had a client email me, which I also got on the iPhone, and I've got an issue, it would be something like, I've got an issue with my invoice. Can you fix it? So what I did is I logged into my dashboard, and I was actually able to access all my clients and actually fix that problem with that invoice for the client. I actually then sent it out to her client, emailed it back through my iPhone and said, hey, it's all fixed, all done, off it goes. So in that way, now I am running a full virtual office. I don't have any more filing cabinets. So I've cut down to, and I think I had more than, hate to say it, I probably had more than 8 filing cabinets at one stage when I used to work in the office, going back years ago when I had the 4 girls. I now run a virtual filing cabinet in Dropbox, where every client has got their own own folder. And within that folder, they've got other separate folders, and everything will go in there now, whether it's a bank statement, whether it's a BAS lodgement, even to the extent of if I get an email and I need to save it, I don't print it off. I don't print off anything. I actually save it from my Gmail, because I've got different extensions on my Gmail. And with one of the extensions, I turn it into a PDF, and I then save it into the client folder. So I don't need any more filing cabinets as well.
So how long did that take you to transform from that, let's call it the filing cabinet, the physical filing cabinet, to a virtual filing cabinet?
Well, it wasn't that long actually, because I'd already had Dropbox, and I sort of played around with it. I had a few folders there, but not the full, the way I have it now. So I would say I did that within about 2 months, 3 months, because I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to get those folders out of my life for each client. They had 2 folders now. And I haven't picked up a folder for the last 12 months because everything's sitting in Dropbox. And the beauty of that is while I was just overseas recently celebrating my 60th, I was actually working on clients because I had all their data in Dropbox or QuickBooks or via Gmail. I used, if I can say it, Jetpack Workflow to run all my jobs in my business in the actual practice. So I know what hasn't been done by the 2 girls and what has been done. So therefore, I know I'm being compliant.
So you can be you could be anywhere in the world in a sense, and have your office on your computer or in your palm of your hand, because everything is in a virtual sort of environment.
Totally.
So in terms of, you obviously, by sort of moving to this paperless environment, I would imagine you're saving considerably in terms of, you don't have to rent, you're not printing things, you're not having to store things. How do you see it's transformed your practice specifically in that sense?
Can I say one of the hardest things we had, and I had, like I said, I had 4 girls at one stage, it was our filing. We would print up stuff and then we would leave it on the desk or the actual office tray for the filing tray. Our filing tray became 2 filing trays and 3 filing trays. Then I had to pay someone to actually do that filing. So it's not just the printing that we no longer do, it's a saving of time as well. I would hate filing because we had the bank statements we had to file in the actual client filing cabinet, or would we have to send it back, or will I actually keep it because I need to keep it for my documentation, for my compliance. So it saved us a great deal of time. But yeah, space. I've only got one filing cabinet now in my office here, and that is a couple of personal stuff, but I don't have much information in those filing cabinets about my clients anymore, because it's all in my Dropbox.
Now, I think something which would be really interesting to understand is, obviously, historically, people have had to send out, whether it's documents to get signed or they've got client engagement letters which are outlining the service they provide. Can you talk about how you've streamlined that, that whole, workflow piece to really go electronic, including the letters you send out, and maybe using e-sign to really have instant responses?
Well, I'm always looking at it. You know me well, Andrew. So I'm always looking out for a better product or a better software that can help me streamline my business even more and more. And I've just moved from an engagement software to what I now use, which is Better Proposal. With that Better Proposal, I send out the engagement letter, but I also send out the proposal first. He chooses what he wants to buy from me, whether he wants to buy A, B, or C product. Then once he actually signs that, he'll actually receive another email to say, please complete this form. So he will complete the form. It's all electronic. It's in another different software that I use. I can actually list out the softwares later, Sam, if you want me to. But then he actually receives that. So the actual form that gets sent out with my proposal has now saved me at least an hour and a half, because by the time I would type up an engagement letter, mail it out or email it out to the client, he would have to print it up, then he'd have to sign it, then he'd have to scan it, send it back to me, or he'd even mail it to me, the old snail mail, or email it. It's now done live. So he's on the software, he signs it electronically, and then the next page, once he signs it, it'll actually send out the form is there, ready for him to complete. The form gets completed. I receive an email to say that, one, that he's actually signed the agreement, the proposal, what he's actually bought, and then the form is completed as well, so I know all about the onboarding information that I need, so that saved me time. And then the beauty of it all is I use another CRM called HubSpot, and the information that I get out of that form will actually automatically go into HubSpot with all the client details that I want to bring in. So that in itself saved me at least a couple of hours just onboarding a client, at least.
Perfect. Okay, really cool. Look, at this point, I might just pass back to Sam. He's been polling the listeners just to on a couple of things. So maybe Sam can share some insights of what's been going on there.
Yeah, great. Firstly, thanks, Lauretta. It's always a bit daunting sharing your own personal story. I know there are a lot of people here that will relate to things that you're talking about, and some things they might not relate to yet. And that's the whole idea of today's discussion, is to just spark conversation and get ideas about efficiencies that we can implement in our bookkeeping businesses. So the first thing that I put a poll out for was very interesting results, and that was bank fee utilization in client files. So for those of you who haven't already given it a shot, I'm putting polls up, and so I'm going to relaunch that poll for you in a second, and I'll just get you to, if you haven't already, add your input here to the bank feeds poll. So I'll just relaunch that. And so just to test this out, again, if you could just go to the polling option that came up and just select how many clients you've got on bank feeds activated at the moment. We've got percentages there. So this is completely anonymous. So obviously we're not collecting any sensitive data here. The idea is just to give us an idea of who's using what at the moment. And what I find very interesting is that the large majority, or at least a majority, seem to be still very manually based from our audience today. So I think a good conversation starter here, Lauretta, would be, why do you benefit and why does the client benefit? Like, in a summary, why are bank feeds important to you versus just manually following the same step that isn't broken and continuing with the paper statement version. Can you give me an idea there?
Yeah. Do you want me to go now, Sam?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, look, I set up a lot of bank rules for my clients. And I know that with the bank rule that I set up, because I bank rule the bejesus out of my clients' files, because then they don't have to worry or almost think about what they are doing. As in, Officeworks is going to go to office suppliers, GST. So we set up the bank rules for most of the transactions coming through, and they hardly have any anything that they need to do as a process, as a manual process for them to enter. So therefore, it eliminates that the possibility that they could actually, process it to, assets, because that happens. Instead of sending it to office suppliers, they'll send it to office assets. So we're trying to eliminate the actual data. I hate using that word, data. We're trying to eliminate that actual transaction going wrong, because that's what takes up a lot of my time at the end of each month and the end of each quarter, to make sure that everything has been processed correctly, as you know.
Yeah, perfect. So
does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's a great example. I think I agree with that completely. So that's a case there where the clients are also interacting.
Yes.
A case where the clients, we all get those clients that say, look, I don't want to touch the file. I want you to do it. I don't deal with the finances, but I don't want to do these bank fees because I don't trust them. What are some of the ways that you would handle the objections there?
Well, basically, I'd say, in that case, I'd say, look, we'll take it over. We'll do all the bookkeeping for you, because then I still do bank rule bejesus out of all the file, because it saves my practice time as well, because we use Receipt Bank, if I can say that, and also the bank rules. So it depends on the actual client, of course, Sam, too, because you've got construction industry clients, which I've got to be a little bit more careful about, and the way that we're processing, because we've got jobs, we've got locations, we've got projects. So it depends on the client and what way we can actually save and eliminate our time as well.
Yep. And what about security? So let's say someone, it's a typical thing. People will come to you and say, I don't want my banking data into, I'll just give you the statements. I've been doing that for 20 years. What's your resolution there? What does your comeback to that kind of fear that people have about security?
Well, I ask them whether they use internet banking.
Very good. Yeah.
Right. Do you use internet banking? Yes. And I'll say, well, this is the same. You've got the same. I can't take your money out of QuickBooks Online. All we're doing is just mirror imaging the transaction into QuickBooks Online. That's all that's coming through. And most of the time when they see it, right, because I've got some sample files, I'll actually show them.
Yeah.
When they can see it, it might take me one or more times to do it. I had one client that it took me 3 years, Sam, to actually talk him into it. And now he doesn't even think about it. No qualms whatsoever. But this was the client that also thought that, the ATO is going to see all of his data as well.
Well, look, they do see a lot, but I think that's great. And so I think for a lot of us, for those of you that mark that you don't have many on bank feeds, maybe you yourself might be part of the objection there. You might not trust it. I think the other thing to remember is bank feeds are no longer a new service. They've been around now for quite a few years.
Yeah.
Even the newer platforms have really worked on the accuracy of their data. There's a lot more integrity there. And you'll find that all of the bigger bookkeeping practices and those that have implemented these paperless systems, they all use bank feeds. And it's not about you telling the client, this is how we operate, too bad. It's about saying, here are the benefits. And like Lauretta said, let me demonstrate that to you, so that don't just use words, show them what a bank feed is. A lot of people hear bank and they panic, thinking access to their personal data.
Yeah.
We all know how non-true that is with bank feeds. It's literally a statement lines coming in.
Yeah, correct.
That's great. the other poll we've just run is about filing. So it seems like our audience are a lot further ahead in terms of the filing step versus bank feeds. And so that is an interesting one, I think, because we have a lot more control over our filing. So looking at the results there, I don't know if you can see them, Lauretta.
No, I can't, Dale.
So we had 4 options: paper filing in the client's office, in your own office, digital filing, or a mix. And so we've got a lot of mix is the largest one. And then the second largest result was digital, which is great to see.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
I personally am also paperless in my practice, and I know that does take time to implement to get this working so that you can then explain it to a client. When you're onboarding a client, I know personally this is the most important time to get this paperless system set up. What are some of the things that you discuss with the client, including add-ons, that help you file things digitally from the start?
I use Typeform, where I'll send out, as I mentioned before, I'll send out the proposal. The form goes automatically to the client. When he completes it, it comes straight back to me. When it comes back to me in Gmail, because I've got so many extensions in my Gmail, it's one that hasn't died of exhaustion yet, that I then PDF it straight out of my Gmail into his virtual filing cabinet. I have templates set up in my Dropbox that as soon as I get in a new client, I will straight away set up that folder for him, and each client has got the same folder and then subfolders within. Then of course I tailor it in case, we need different things for different clients. But as soon as that information comes through, it'll go into my folder, into his virtual folder, I should say. I use Zapier, Z-A-P-I-E-R.
Yep.
And I'm still working on them. So I'm still, there's so many things I know I can do to eliminate my time and streamline my business even more with using Zapier. So I'm actually trying to do one at the moment. So I've just got to call out to one of the groups I belong to help me with a Zap.
Great. So you've got some really valuable points there. And I just want to pull that apart a little bit, because we don't want to overwhelm people that haven't started this journey. And I know when I first started going paperless, it's not easy to keep up with all these
true
buzzwords.
Yes. Yep.
Like, we've got a lot of buzzwords there, and I know that some people will be nodding along, some people will be looking fuzzy. So if we broke it down to the most basic step, let's say we're helping someone tomorrow implement a paperless system, what's one thing they could do to start going digital with any client? Just one thing.
Dropbox.
Perfect. And how, let's say you've got a client who's never used Dropbox. How would you explain that to them?
Well, basically, it's your filing cabinet in the cloud.
Great. And how do they see this filing cabinet? How do we share it between, let's say, okay, I know how to put things in Dropbox, but then how does the client do that?
Yeah. I actually give them a little bit of training. I actually set up a client probably about 2 months ago with his own Dropbox. He had Dropbox, so he knew what it did, but he just never had it set up correctly because he was wanting his staff to actually access some of the folders as well. So therefore, I actually set him up with a different email address to his staff members, because that was the issue going on. And because he could see everything, but also the staff members could see everything. And therefore, and this is an electrician, because he's trying to go into the cloud as well. So this is really awesome, because it's not just us, it's electricians, because he knows that he's going to be able to save time, because with what he wants to do is every time one of his staff members goes out and does a job, he wants a picture of the before and after.
Yeah.
Just in case a customer comes back to him and says, no, there could be an issue going on. So therefore, he wanted this really to work. So I set them all up. And again, it was that filing system that I set up within his Dropbox under each folder. And then the employees, they had a different email address to access. So therefore, they logged in. It's just like logging into any software. and they can see the different folders sitting there under each different client name. So it's like a filing cabinet. When you open up that drawer, you've got your different names sitting there, and so you can actually just drop them in. Exactly the same. That's how we use it. That's how I explained it to him.
And that's brilliant. And that's exactly how I explain it. Honestly, it's our prerogative to get this right, because if you rely on the clients to lead this conversation, you'll end up with one leg and one foot in every direction, like you're playing Twister. And honestly, you'll have a Google Drive here, a Dropbox there, a paper filing cabinet here, and it feels like you're being a bit more productive, but you actually end up being confused. So if you can set up a system, whether you use Dropbox or not, you could use Google Drive or something similar. It's really good to just set up a simple filing structure. Hey, client A, this is how we work with our clients. You can drop any important documents into here, give them a little tutorial like Lauretta said. And the handy thing there is the client will actually start using that for other parts of the business. So like Lauretta said, it's not just the bookkeeping. They also want to go paperless. And so, hey, great, I can put my family photos in here. I can put my contracts in here, and they can have separate folders inside it, just like a filing cabinet. And the great thing about Dropbox is it's backed up across multiple servers, which means if one went down in the worst case, which has never happened to me in several years now, then you have a backup stored remotely that can be accessed.
And accessed anywhere, Sam, like I was accessing overseas.
Exactly. You mean like an example there, I even put my plane tickets into Dropbox. So when I'm at the airport, I just open a travel folder and I've got my e-ticket ready. So it's about practicing it yourself. If I could give one piece of advice, like Loretta said, try Dropbox yourself, for example. Set your own business up, drag your folders in, make it make sense, and you'll find, okay, this is quite easy to use. Once you're across it, it's very easy to then set up a folder for your client and say, we work with Dropbox or Google Drive, and here's your folder. I'll send you an email invite, and all you need to do is drop any information into that for me. So Loretta, that's the file storage. Talking about other efficiencies, we've talked about bank feeds. You were talking about engagement letters. And so you mentioned that you use engagement letters. I think this is another one that I'll pop up now. Let me just write this poll out. And while I'm doing this, maybe if you could run us through, you and Andrew, a little bit about digital signatures that you're doing at the moment as well.
Me or Andrew?
Yeah, both of you.
I'll start because what I have is, yes, I've got my my actual engagement letter where they do actually sign it straight away. And then it comes back to me, but they can also choose what they want to buy from me. So I don't just go, okay, this is what you get, because I do have, I don't call them packages, by the way, so I'm just going outside of the norm, and I just call them my bookkeeping service fee, monthly bookkeeping service fee. So therefore, in that monthly bookkeeping service fee, they can choose A, B, or C, or D, and then they might want to have an extra section where they want me to set up their, well, in one particular case, he wants me to look after all his bad debts. So, that'll go in there as well, and then he can buy that, and then automatically I've got EC Debit that works behind the scenes. So guess what? I've already got EC Debit signed, and I don't have to chase that money myself. So it's already, save me a lot of time with his electronic signature, but also too, I use Adobe, I think it's called Adobe Pro, where I process a BAS, I save it as a draft, I'll put it into Adobe Pro with the actual GST ledger, and then I'll send it off to the client. She'll check it, she'll sign that she's approved that. Then I actually process the actual, so it comes back to me straight away. Plus the beauty of this, Sam, I've got an audit trail. When she's seen it, when she signed it, I've got the date as well with the audit trail. Then when it comes back, I actually lodge the BAS again and send it off to her, and she signs it, we're done. Saves me so much time compared to having to print it off, then send it to them, then they've got to sign it, then they've got to print it again and send it back.
So Lauretta, does that whole process, does that sort of build greater transparency and trust with the client? The fact that there is this whole audit trail where they can actually see what that, what it can, talk us through that in terms of how that's.
Well, this client, one client that I did yesterday, she's a brand new client. She's got a lot of different businesses that I look after, and it was her first process of BAS that I've actually done for her. She's used other BAS agents before. She's in Queensland somewhere. And anyway, so I actually processed the BAS as a draft. I put it into Adobe Pro with the general ledger, sent it off to her. Within 5 minutes, it came back. And then she even rang me and said, "Oh my God, Lauretta, that was fantastic."
So what's the time difference compared to what it would have been like in terms of?
Oh my God, I'd be waiting days sometimes, days. I mean, I do use Gov reports as well, but for me, for my practice, I prefer to use Adobe Pro signature, because I know that, like Gov reports does have a signature in there, but I use Adobe Pro for my practice.
Perfect. Maybe while Sam's getting the results of the next poll, maybe you can just talk about how you've grown your practice using the matchmaking process with your profile on the ProAdvisor program.
Yeah, look, to get yourself on there to start off with, guys, you do need to be certified and advanced certified. And me being one of the Intuit trainers, I invite you to come along and get certified. You'll find it in your QBOA dashboard, where you have access to all of your clients' files from that one dashboard. So get certified and then advanced. There's a new section now there off your actual training. So do go in and have a look. And then once you're actually certified, you can put up like bottom right corner there that you can see. That's me with, and you can see I'm an advanced QuickBooks Online certified person. And once you put that up there, I would suggest you start getting testimonials from your clients. From that particular page, through your QuickBooks Online accountant dashboard, you can go in and you can actually set up your actual advisor page. Try to think of something that someone is actually wanting from you that you do differently to someone else, because there are other people on there, of course, but just try to differentiate yourself from someone. It's your marketing processes too. And then get your current clients to give you testimonials. From that page, there's a link that you can copy. And what I do every now and again with new clients is I'll copy that page, send it to an email, say something nice to them, and it'll be really appreciated if you could give me a nice review, and then they can do it straight away and it will go into that review section there.
Fantastic. So obviously we've got clients, small businesses looking for a ProAdvisor. How have you found that for yourself in terms of your business? What sort of engagement have you had?
I actually get quite a few a week. It depends on the area that they're in. I know Sam's just above me with 32 reviews, I think Sam's got.
He's been busy.
Hey?
He's been busy, hasn't he?
Yes, Sam, you've been very busy. So they're the things that they look at, guys, is, they read about how great Sam is. And if they're closer to Sam, they'll probably like Sam. And that's how he's grown his practice, just the same as me. If they like what I say, and then as soon as I come to, because what will happen is you'll receive an email with the actual lead to say that, John Smith's looking for a bookkeeper, a BAS agent, a tax agent, because he can actually put his little blurb in on the right-hand side when they're checking out your profile. So it depends on how quick you are in getting to that client, because they may be shopping around. I'm being very honest here, Andrew. So, and then again, we don't get along with every client. I can say that because I don't get along with every client that rings me either. So it just depends on whether you gel with that client, whether it's exactly what they're after. And can I say this? It's whether or not you want that client as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the great thing about it is bringing opportunities to engage with new clients who you may not have otherwise.
Yeah.
That's the.
And it's free. And it's free, Andrew. Yep.
Free. How are we doing that?
Exactly.
Any other comments you'd like to make on the ProAdvisor program and the benefits you've seen from it?
Look, I use the wholesale pricing as well. So every now and again, we do get some great discounts from our account managers and also from the Intuit account managers. where you can buy, a pack of 5 or whatever, a little bit more discounted than what you normally do, because we do get 50% off the wholesale price, by the way, the recommended retail wholesale price. Also, too, what I do like about it is having all my clients in the one dashboard, because I can log in each morning. So it's one of the things I log in. The 3 things I use, Sam, in the morning is I open up my Gmail, I open up my QuickBooks Online, and then I open up my Jetpack. And each one of them, I know what I'm doing for the day. So from my one dashboard, I can see where my clients are sitting, whether they've had an issue, or how many transactions I've got to be processed. So then I can actually email my staff member and say, hey, weren't you working yesterday? Because you've still got 100 and something transactions going in. So I keep control of all my clients through that one dashboard.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I think that's the great thing about the platform, is it gives you so much control, and really it's the QuickBooks is the backbone of really, I suppose, how you've been able to go paperless and really have that virtual office, having all the information in one place.
Yeah.
At this point, maybe I might pass back to Sam, just sort of so he can share out the results of this last poll that he's done.
Yeah, great. And just thanks, guys. Just to add something there, I do also use the ProAdvisor portal. And honestly, if you're looking for leads or you're wanting to grow your business, if you want to try some training or setup, I can also vouch for it. I'm not getting paid by Intuit to say this. This is honestly, I get probably anywhere from 2 to 5 leads a week from the QuickBooks portal. And it doesn't cost me anything, and you just collect reviews and slowly build it up. And I think, why not use an opportunity to grow your business and to get more leads for free? I mean, none of the other providers allow you to rank it up by getting reviews. So this is something that QuickBooks does really well. Now, moving on to the poll results, it's really interesting to see we've got a big mix of results with engagement letters. I can see that some people use them, some people don't. And it's great to see that we've got people that have them with all of their clients. For those of you who said that they don't have an engagement letter template, we actually have an AAT engagement letter template you can use. And I suggest that you go to our resources section under templates and give that a look. And you can just tweak it, add your logo, change the wording a bit. Feel free to get a lawyer to look over it and use that moving forward, because it protects you and it also helps you educate the client at the start of the engagement of what to expect. So I think this is a great opportunity now. If you've got any questions, we've covered quite a bit today, and I think that if there's interest, we might run a follow-up session separately to the Tech Talks to run through some of these great efficiencies and softwares that we can use to help go paperless. But if you've got any questions for Lauretta or Andrew about what's been discussed so far today, I'll get you to put it in the Q&A area now, so we can answer those to wrap up today's session. So you've got the Q&A button on the panel of options there. So if you click on Q&A, you can type a question there, either anonymous or with a name, and we'll answer it for you live. Cool, we'll just give everyone a moment if they've got any questions. Okay, so just to wrap up, once again, I'd like to thank Lauretta Finis and Andrew Glenn for joining us today and sharing their insights. There was a lot of really good content shared today, and really appreciate you being open and honest about that. So thank you from the AAT membership and of course AAT itself for joining us today. Anyone who missed out on part of today's webinar, this will be recorded and uploaded, and we hope to see you along at the last Thursday of August. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Lauretta.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.